All right, so we've got several proxies here. I'll call the meeting to order. It is 2:04, and Mayor Pro Tem Alter has Councilmember Kitchen's proxy. I have Mayor Morgan's proxy. Amy Patillo has Andy Brown's proxy. Judge Oakley has Ed Terrio's proxy, and I believe Councilmember Matea has Travis Mitchell's proxy, okay. And Mayor Delisle has Mayor Penniman Moran's proxy. Okay. Everybody, did y'all get that? So we've got lots of proxies here today. But I think that easily gets us to a quorum. So are there any public comments? Did anyone sign up? Okay, we have nobody signed up for public comments. Item number 3, report from the TAC chair.
I'll provide that update.
Okay,
Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank
Chad.
you. Yeah, so at the TAC meeting, we had just 3 items. We had discussion and recommendation on the fall amendment cycle for the Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, and the Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP. Ryan Collins will be making that same presentation to this board today, and the TAC had unanimously recommended Transportation Policy Board approval of the amendments to the TIP and RTP. We also had an information item on the Regional State of Safety Report provided by Jeff Kaufman from the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. And Jeff is here today and will be briefing the Policy Board with that information as well. And finally, we had a quick update on our corridor readiness program, just to inform the committee that our prioritization subcommittee is still working through the data and will likely develop recommendations to be presented at the TAC next meeting. Can take any questions?
Okay, anybody have any questions on the TAC report? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we will move on to item number 4, which approval of the meetings from, or meeting minutes from October 3rd. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I heard that Mayor Delisle and second, Councilmember Harper Madison is the second on that. Any discussion on the minutes from October 3rd? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you. We will now move on to item. Rudy's, thank you for joining us in your always colorful UT. You know, I don't know about y'all, but I'm always, it's like the highlight of our CAMPO meetings to see what he's going to wear. Item number 5, discuss and take appropriate action on TIP and RTP amendments.
All right, thank you. So this is the fall amendment cycle. This is just bringing back the item that we presented and had a public hearing on at the last policy board meeting. Again, this is just our regular scheduled opportunity for sponsors if they need to make changes to the regional transportation plan or the transportation improvement program. We took this to the TAC both as an information item, and then last month we requested a recommendation, and they did, as Chad mentioned, recommend the changes for approval. And we also had a community outreach from October 3rd through November 3rd, which Joyce is going to talk about. And I just want to briefly just mention the requested changes, if I can get this thing to click. The biggest one is Cap Metro did receive a $75 million grant from FTA that needs to be added to the TIP in order to be processed. And so that's the major new project. Then we also have FM 973 and SH 95, which were previously approved in our previous TIP, and those need to be rolled over. And then we have FM 2720. These are 2 projects. This is essentially one project in Caldwell County that is being added to the TIP as well. They are currently under development and were funded by the commission back in August. And so with that, I'll pass it over to Joyce to talk about the public involvement.
Thanks, Ryan. So the public comment period, as he mentioned, was October 3rd through November 3rd. We had the online open house available in late September, so we went ahead and posted it about a week early and also sent out notifications at that point in time so that the members of the public had an opportunity to read through and look at that material before the board had their public hearing at the October 3rd board meeting. We held 2 in-person open houses in accordance with the PPP. We had one in Austin for the Cap Metro project and one in Lockhart for the 2124 project. And then we also continued our online open house. The information that was available in person was also available online. So that included a little bit of information about the TIP and the amendments and how that process works, as well as the project list, the map, the project sponsor's contact information, and a link to submit comments. And we continued some of the practices we started when we were kind of locking down and not having as many in-person opportunities. So we still have, in addition to the in-person opportunities, we continued receiving comments through the phone and voicemail, through the mail, fax, and email as well. So we received 10 total comments this amendment cycle. One was specific to the amendments that were submitted, so that was on FM 973, and I've been working with the district so that they, as the project sponsor, can respond to any specific details this member of the public may want on that. Other comments included a request to speed up some of the deferred projects and get some of the projects going a little bit quicker if possible, and then also some requests for additional transit service. So with that, I will turn it back to Ryan.
Thank you, Joyce. So with that, we'll conclude the presentation, and staff and the Technical Advisory Committee recommend the Policy Board approve the amendments as listed in Resolution 2022-11-5.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion on item number 5?
Chair, I move approval, but I do want to make a comment maybe after we've had a
Okay,
second.
let's get a motion and a second, and then we'll discuss. So, all right, Commissioner Howard moved, and then Judge Oakley seconds that motion. So now we're open for discussion.
Thank you, and I support this this amendment, but I wanted to point out, my understanding is that the TAC, when they were asked to review and comment for approval, the comment period was still open, and so like that last, the comment that was sort of material that talked about safety had not been made yet. And so I think this has happened before, and I would just like to, I guess, formally request that the staff adjust their calendar so that the open comment period on these types of amendments can be completed before the TAC needs to comment. So it might be a whole month worth of work or something, but if that's possible, it seems like it would be, make the TAC's review more meaningful.
So I'll let Joyce, who kind of manages that piece of the calendar, comment on that.
Sure. I can, well, the substantive comment related to 973 was received prior to the TAC meeting, so the TAC did have the advantage of having that comment. Typically, we do have the TAC meeting a couple of days prior to the comment period closing, and that this past October it was done. The board meeting was a week early to allow for some of the holidays that happen in October. So the TAC meeting also fell a week earlier than usual. But generally, the TAC does have the advantage of most of those comments coming in prior to their recommendation.
So this was just, it sounds like just because of timing of that one meeting, but generally the practice is the comments are closed before that TAC meeting.
Or closing within a day or two of it.
Well, our staff did point out that it hasn't fallen that way. It has fallen as you've described it, where the comment period is still open. Mm-hmm. And so just strategically, it seems like we'd want the comment period to be closed so they could fully review we haven't had a problem, but procedurally, we're setting ourselves up, I think, for a problem. So for what it's worth, I think the comment period should be closed before they review it.
Okay, sometimes it's timing beyond our control, but I think that's generally been the goal. So we can certainly look to try to close that timing. Any other comments?
Commissioner Howard.
Yes, sir.
I think usually when we encounter this problem, it's because of the fall amendment cycle falls around the time of October when we have to adjust the calendar. But we'll take a look at that and see if there's something we can do to try to
Okay.
mitigate it.
We'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
I was talking with Ryan about this before the meeting as well, just to understand the process a little bit better. And one thing we had talked about is that might be helpful for the board is if he could make a timeline of all the different dates that have to happen before we get to the TIP amendment approval, and the public comment period, and the STIP approval, and the FHWA approval. So we were talking about that, and I don't believe we have one slide that we've ever seen as a board that shows all of those different dates and might be helpful in giving an understanding of.
I mean, we've got a slide that we review every year that has the calendar. It may not have that level of detail, but it does have the overall approval calendar and all the activities.
So if that could be updated with a little more detail, that may be helpful in understanding what flexibility there is to get that public comment period shifted just slightly so that it would finish before the TAC meets.
All right. Any other comments?
And I would like just to iterate one of the points, one of the things that controls the schedule is FHWA and their review of the TIP. So when they do their approval, and that kicks off the revision cycle, that we have an opportunity to go make those changes in TxDOT's and the FHWA STIP system, which is usually what drives the schedule, and the approvals from Federal Highway and FTA. It varies. They're not on a set schedule, and so we kind of wait to see when that is to build out our schedule so that we can, because we have to be responsive both to FHWA's schedule and TxDOT's schedule, but also those are the sponsors that are submitting. So, Amy and I did talk about this a little bit earlier, and, we'll certainly look at what we can do to expand that schedule. The next due date or cutoff date for amendments for the next fall or the spring amendment cycle is going to be in January 13th currently. So that should build plenty of time in there for us to be able to get everything done. So, but there's a lot of work that goes into before we even go out for the public comment. There's about a month and a half worth of work that has to go into those amendment requests. That's working with sponsors to make sure we get all the information we need, which is usually the bulk of the work, and then getting all the materials ready. So there's a lot of work that gets done, but we'll certainly make sure that, we get TAC as much information as possible to make those recommendations, and we'll try to build that into the schedule going forward. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of item number 5? Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to item number 6. Discuss and take appropriate action on CAMPO Executive Director to begin negotiation on Chestnut Street 150 multimodal corridor study.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Will Liska, Regional Planning Manager for CAMPO. On September 21st, CAMPO issued a request for proposals for planning services for the Chestnut Street State Loop 150 multimodal corridor study. The purpose of the study is to assist the City of Bastrop with a corridor study on Chestnut Street, also known as State Loop 150, between SH71 on Childers Drive to SH71 on Tahitian Drive. The study will identify safety and mobility needs and develop a context-sensitive transportation and placemaking vision within several focus areas along the corridor, including through downtown Bastrop and connecting to Bastrop State Park. This contract will use up to $250,000 in metropolitan planning funds, and the City of Bastrop will provide an additional $50,000 in local contributions for a total project budget amount not to exceed $300,000. The interlocal agreement between CAMPO and Bastrop formalizing this partnership was approved at the October board meeting and has since been executed by the two parties. So CAMPO received 6 responses to the request for proposal. These proposals were ranked and scored out of a maximum of 100 points by the evaluation committee using the criteria defined in the RFP. The top 2 ranking firms were invited for in-person interviews with a potential maximum of 25 additional points awarded through the interview process. Tool Design Group was the top ranked firm following interviews and has been selected as the preferred contract recipient. With that, staff requests the Transportation Policy Board to authorize the CAMPO Executive Director to negotiate and execute a contract with a top-ranked consultant firm to develop the Chestnut Street SL-150 multimodal corridor study.
All right, is there a motion on item number 7? All right, motion by Commissioner Beckett, second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion on item number 7?
I just wondered, is there some reason why the information about the consultants was only placed in the slides and not in the packet for the meeting?
So we were conducting interviews, those interviews that I mentioned on Monday. When the board materials went out, we did not make a decision until Tuesday.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be, moving forward, just send a revision on that stuff, because you want to make, I mean, you guys do an excellent job of providing the materials, one, in a timely fashion, two, meticulously with a lot of information to us to work on. So when things like that, it always helps, because it looks curious to us, right? Because we're used to seeing all the specific information that goes into the decision right there. So in the future, yeah, if you have to send a revised one, that's cool. You know, that makes perfect sense. Just make sure you guys execute on that.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item number 8.
Is number 7.
Oh, sorry, number 7. I'm on. Discuss and take appropriate action on a functional classification change for 2243.
Thank you. So this is just a routine functional classification request. Again, functional classification changes need to be approved by the policy board before TxDOT submits the application to FHWA, who does the final call. It's just to reflect any kind of changes to the roadway network that happen as a result of projects, connectivity, traffic, and capacity changes. So the project today is RM 2243 Hero Way. This is a project that was selected by the policy board back in 2018 for preliminary engineering, and it's currently classified as a minor arterial. You can see in the maps there, but a portion of the new project design is going to be on new location, which is currently unclassified, and so this functional classification request is really just going to ensure that that new portion is also classified as a minor arterial. So pretty routine request, and with that I will request that the policy board approve the functional classification changes as listed in the resolution 2022-11-7. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I hear a motion from Mayor Delisle on that one.
Yes, please, motion to approve.
And I will second that one. A project near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yes, and I was hoping to make a comment. I wanted to thank my commissioner very much for championing this project the last few years. Appreciate you.
It's a much-needed east-west corridor through really the middle of our county.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, now we will move on to item number 8. Discuss and take appropriate action to support Texas Smart Track.
Good afternoon. Nirav Ved, Data and Operations Manager for CAMPO. This item is before you because about a year ago, Congress enacted the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021. And one of the things that this new law did was enact several new discretionary funding programs. And one of these programs is known as the SMART Grant. The purpose of the SMART Grant is to fund projects that use technology to improve things like transportation efficiency and transportation safety. Now, CAMPO staff, working with the TxDOT Austin District, the City of Austin, and the University of Texas have been working on an initiative called Texas Smart Track that we feel fits the bill for funding. And the purpose of the Smart Track facility is it's actually 3 closed and open loops that will test connected and automated vehicles for things that may not be challenging to the human motorist, something like when a connected automated vehicle encounters a pedestrian or a bicyclist or an intersection that's not your traditional 4-way intersection that you see in downtowns, how to navigate those. Car companies will bring their vehicles to the Smart Track facility and test them for safety and efficiency before sending them out to the general public. This is going to be a very competitive grant because There is no non-federal match required. It'll be fully funded with federal dollars, and one of the key facets of success will be a show of commitment for the project, a show of support from the policy board, which is why staff is requesting that the policy board support the application for the SMART grant and the accompanying resolution. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to support this?
So move.
All right, Commissioner Howard. Second. Second by Councilmember Matea. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Nirav. All right, we're going to move on to item number 9, and it's posted in executive session, but I don't know that we need to go to executive session for that. What I'll do is update the policy board. The executive committee met in October to go over Ashby's evaluation, and I received responses from, I think, what did I say, 12? I think 12 policy board members, and out of a possible 4, he ranked 3.84. It's an incredible evaluation. I think there was a few constructive criticism things, but overall very glowing evaluation from those folks that did respond. And I think the thing that continued to pop up in people's comments were how comments related to how much Ashby has really impacted CAMPO's reputation, both here locally, regionally, and even nationwide, and how much he has brought to the table in that. That was kind of one of the common threads in the evaluation. And I just, I as the chair, it has been a delight to work with Ashby, and we have all benefited by his expertise that he has brought to the table. So the recommendation of the committee was, and for those of you who are new, the way CAMPO works, it has to, as an organization, be under another governmental entity as its fiscal agent. And it was City of Austin for a number of years, and then, 16, we switched that to Williamson County. And what we've largely done with staff and Ashby is anytime the county has done cost of living increases, we have mirrored that both for staff and for Ashby. So that's going to be, that was the recommendation of the executive committee, was to mirror there was a mid-year cost of living increase that was done in January of this year that the county did of 3%, and then within our budget this year we did a 5% cost of living, and then for all staff, and then the recommendation of the committee was a 3% merit increase. So I will make that in the form of a motion on item number 9A. Second by Commissioner Jones. Anybody else that was in that meeting that I missed something that wanted to make any comments? I think I summarized most everybody's input. Okay, we'll go with silence means concurrence. So all in favor of the motion?
More like acquiescence.
All right, any opposed?
We hug.
Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Ashby, and thank you for your hard work. We are absolutely lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 10, presentation on regional state of safety. That could be a very loaded topic.
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Kaufman with the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. I'm here to, as mentioned, to present on the state of safety in the CAMPO region. This report looks at the last 10 years of crash data, which was collected from various law enforcement agencies around the region. The report, I will be providing a regional overview for the sake of brevity, but the report also looks at 16 different focus areas of note, which should be considered for future planning efforts for addressing the traffic safety problem. I'd like to say it's just one thing, but it's a myriad of different issues that need to be ultimately addressed. I'd like to start off looking at regional crashes. Regionally, crashes have been trending upward over the last 10 years, with the exception being the 2-year period during the COVID pandemic, 2021. And this partially is due to the overall drop in traffic, fewer people driving, fewer people crashing. Unfortunately, a lot of those crashes, we ended up with a lot of fatalities, and this is something that happened across the nation. You know, going from about 33,000, we were about 33,000 fatalities back in the mid 2010s, and I believe we've passed 40,000, which was something that we hadn't seen in decades. So the situation has gotten quite interesting. While crashes, though, have gone down over the last 2 years, they do appear to be increasing. As of September 30th, 2020, there were nearly 26,000 incidents in the region, and compared to, and this compares to about 23,000 at the same time last year. So it looks like you're going to come close or possibly even surpass 2021 crashes. In return to crash rates, which is expressed in crashes per 100 million vehicle miles traveled annually, the region overall, it increased through 2016, 2017, but it's been on a downward trend since then. Even with during COVID period, as vehicle miles decreased, we would expect some level of increase with crashes, but actually continue to decrease. Regionally, and not just compared to the state, but also compared to major metro areas such as Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, your crash rates have been considerably lower than the rest of the state. So that's very positive for the region. I'd like to carry over the positivity over to fatalities, but unfortunately I can't. Regional fatalities have been increasing throughout the last 10 years. Compared to 2012, it's been up 50%. I was expecting for fatalities to go down during 2020 and 2021 because of COVID, but unfortunately they've actually been at the highest levels during this 10-year period. And looking at 2022, as of yesterday, there were 262 fatalities reported in the region, compared to 287 total for last year. It appears that the region is going to surpass 2021 levels. Serious injuries, they fluctuated over the last 10 years. 2020 and 21 were interesting in that 2020, for the 10-year period, you had the lowest number of serious injuries reported. And then the following year, you had the highest number of serious injuries reported. Don't know why that discrepancy. It was a very interesting statistic on the chart. I wish to tell you that hopefully it was going lower, but currently you're at about 1,300 serious injuries for the year as of yesterday, and it also appears that you're going to surpass for 2022. In this chart, I've combined bicycle and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. I've done this more to coincide with the federal performance measure, which is to reduce the number of serious injuries and fatalities for non-motorized road users. Looking at these statistics, bicycle and pedestrian fatalities are 21% of all the region's traffic deaths, despite only being 2.6% of all the region's crashes. In terms of the split, it's for fatalities, 90% of fatalities are pedestrians compared to 10% bicyclists. And for serious injuries, it's 70% pedestrians versus 30% bicyclists. I've highlighted a series of safety issues here. As mentioned, the report looks at 16 different focus areas. In a nutshell, a distraction in terms of the most frequent factor reported in crashes is the largest factor for all crashes. In terms of serious injuries and fatalities, though, the road departures, folks driving off the road, driving into poles, trees, into ditches, et cetera, predominantly single vehicle incidents without another car involved. I've highlighted here, though, 5 different factors: alcohol, speeding, motorcyclists, unbelted passengers, and pedestrians. The reason why I've highlighted these is you notice on the chart, in terms of percent of all crashes, single digit in terms of the number of total crashes, but in terms of the number of fatalities, it's highly overrepresented in these 5 areas.
I'm very curious about the road departures, and I'm assuming, well, I don't want to assume. Alcohol play, when I see alcohol broken out, the alcohol is not played in specific denotation for road departures, or is that the sub-aspect to it, or conglomerate? I'm trying to better ascertain that, because that's a lot of road departures.
It's an excellent question, and I got... First, these are all, it's possible that there's some level of combination. Some of these road departures are alcohol related. Here's an issue about alcohol, and it's something that often I'm told not to talk about. I'm going to talk about it anyway. There is actually a law in the books. And there's the law in the books is that it's a law by the insurance industry where certain hospitals, if someone comes in and they are deemed to have been driving under the influence and they are injured, insurance companies sometimes have the right not to pay the bills. It's called the Uniform Policy Provision Law, and it's something that even the people who created this law nearly 60, 70 years ago thought was a bad idea and has asked to have that revoked. It's curious whether or not alcohol is more of a factor in road departure crashes. Unfortunately, if someone's taken to the hospital injured and they're the only person involved, it might not be in the hospital's best interest to test that person.
Wow.
It's an interesting situation.
Okay, you just answered that question to a lawyer, just so you know. Yeah, Tucker, you had a comment?
Question for these are taken from our crash reports, correct?
Can you
Yes.
turn your mic on? Sorry, it's hard to hear on this end.
Is that better? Sorry. So my question was, these are taken from the crash reports that law enforcement fills out, correct?
Yes, sir.
So there could be some overlap in these categories. I mean, there may be one crash that is alcohol-related, an older driver, speeding, and unrestrained. Those all could be on the same report. So there's certainly overlap on these. They don't all add up to 100. So I'm not sure about the insurance and hospital. I don't know anything about that, but I do know that there's many overlapping categories for each contributing factor or issue on the crash reports filled out by law enforcement.
necessarily individual crashes per se. There's overlap that could cause.
Correct.
That's what I would assume, correct?
For example, someone could be under the influence of alcohol and speeding. But these are what the officers have captured in terms of their contributing to the crash.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Go ahead.
In addition to the report provided, there were 2 additional assessments that were conducted for this study. First was a proposed high injury network. This is something that's being conducted in various areas throughout the United States. Looks at roadways where there's a high level of fatalities and serious injuries. It is used in conjunction with performance reporting. And we were able to go through and look at 5 years of fatality data and injury data and be able to map where the roadways of significance are in the region. A second assessment that was conducted was an intersection assessment. We were able to get a little more in depth with this just due to the nature of the data, but we were able to identify just in terms of the number of crashes that were out there and be able to dig down even deeper in terms of number of fatalities, serious injuries, even just property damage, that perhaps there are certain specific locations that need to have extra attention. And so both of these assessments are a part of the State of Safety report. And I've been working with NERAV and for agencies that are interested. I have the data for this so that you can go through it and be able to pinpoint what crashes that or in what intersections perhaps you might be interested in, and see what's behind all the incidents at stake. Yes, ma'am.
Would that be available to be sent out? I'd be curious about it.
I would see why not. It's
great.
I mean, I have it on a flash drive.
If you can get it to staff, we can make sure that they make that available.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In addition, I'd be more than happy to meet with any staff, talk to any staff in terms of processing the information. It's a lot, and it all kind of combines together through databases. But I'm more than happy to work with any of your staff on this. I've worked with several y'all's staff looking at crashes, and more than happy to. We had even discussed perhaps even providing a training for agency staff to learn how to utilize crash data. It's a lot of information to digest and can be easily misused as well as easily used. So it's something we have on the books.
Is orange higher numbers on this, the bigger the circle?
For this, yes, orange, it would be for color and size of dot. The largest locations, 45 and 35 up in Round Rock seems to be the worst location in the region. I don't know what it is about that intersection, but it has recorded.
Oh, we know. We drive through it.
Okay.
I can tell you.
Admittedly, I left town, I think, right before that intersection opened. But yes, that is number one by leaps and bounds, unfortunately. But yes, we have all this data. The data goes down to locations. I wanted to cut it off to 30 incidents over a 5-year period, one every other month. But if you're interested in looking at all the data, I can work with you all in terms of showing what data to look at and how to look at it. That's all I have. I'd be willing to take any additional questions at this time.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I represent City of Austin here, and one of the things that I think is important to have as part of this conversation is how much of the fatalities that we're experiencing are on TxDOT system roadways. So I think last year was 2 out of 3 of our fatalities. This year is 3 out of 4. Just in the last 12 hours, we had 3 fatalities on 183 and 290. So we need to be really thinking seriously about how we coordinate and what we are doing to address those issues. The numbers keep increasing. We have a Vision Zero policy. I know TxDOT has one for 2050. If we want to meet those goals, we're going to have to be either accelerating what we're doing or doing different things. But I do think it's really important to keep that in mind as we're looking at these numbers.
All right, any other comments? Oh, yes, Councilmember.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. And to follow that up, I was thinking along the same lines, just in terms of the frequency, and in addition to those 3 fatalities, there was a really massive injury as well. It just got me thinking about, to your point, you know, if we are going to be in a problematic way making new records, just thinking through what are some of the conversations that we're not having. I guess I'm sort of speaking this into the ether because I'm not sure if it's a question or a statement, but just really thinking about what are the implications around the numbers. It's kind of terrifying. And I know I've been having conversations with law enforcement. We fortunately this week for District 1 in Austin, we're going to be changing the speed limit on some roads like Dessau, for example, where people are getting upwards of 65 miles an hour in the middle of the city. That said, I have a lot of other problematic roads that are TxDOT adjacent, and so I just wonder what the most appropriate mechanism for bringing those conversations forward, if we are starting to have a more comprehensive conversation around road safety.
Well, I think you hit one of the nails on the head. It is, you know, we work with our law enforcement, and it is absolutely and partly or largely an enforcement issue. If people don't see regular patrols and people getting tickets on roadways, then they feel emboldened to exceed the speed limit. And our law enforcement tell us that all the time, that that's a huge issue in traffic safety and road safety. But if, as it relates to TxDOT roadways, Tucker can get you with your area engineer and have a deeper dive on those. Because partly, you know, roadways are designed to a certain design speed.
Right.
And I don't think any of them are posted above that design speed, but some of them probably need to come down. But I know working with our law, you know, we've recently changed the speed limits on a couple of roadways where, in Williamson County, where we were having excessive wrecks, and that's helped. But law enforcement we announced it ahead of time, and then law enforcement was out there to help provide the incentive.
And I appreciate that was the second half of my commentary was about design, you know, that redesign of old roadways, but, you know, the front end design of roadways, just really thinking through the implications there. Thank you. I appreciate you letting me leave that.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Tucker? Oh, okay. Did you have a question down at the end, Paige?
I did, and my colleagues had identified some of the thoughts and concerns that I had too, just about the roadway designs as well, and I appreciated seeing the information in the map about in 2020 when fewer cars were on the roadways, we saw a higher injury, more serious injuries, showing that sometimes it is the design of the roadway, that sometimes people are going to go pedal to the metal if they can, and if you can design roadways to be safer and to naturally slow people down, then it's harder to have those high-speed crashes. But I would just also request, in addition to the sharing of the data that you said you could do, I would appreciate being able to have either the maps or the slide presentation as well, just so we can look at that and compare it with some of the work we're doing in the city. On Thursday, I'm chair of the mobility committee for the city council. Thursday afternoon, we had a really enlightening presentation from our Vision Zero program that had a lot of this information as well, and so I really hope we're having those conversations between CAMPO and ATD and some of the other divisions within the cities and counties that care a lot about this conversation too.
The data that are provided will include a GIS file for the high injury network. All the intersections have lat-long points that your GIS folks should be able to just pull in and it'll populate the data set. So,
thank you, I really appreciate that.
That's my pleasure.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I may, one of the reasons that we have been talking about an arterial study between 973 and 29 is, because of the condition of the arterials in that area, where some areas are considered to be major arterials when they're actually classified as minor arterials. And just to have an understanding of where everything is compared to where the development is coming based on permit requests and whatnot, just to understand what's there and what should be connected, what's connected well, what's disconnected, where are there major parts of infrastructure, where there are gaps. It seems to me that as we talk about arterial studies going forward, that we could get information that might be useful as we make recommendations and prepare for what's coming.
All right, and Judge Oakley.
Yeah, when I hear about the arterial study, maybe Ashby's a good time to blow the dust off that arterial study that was done CAMPO-wide. And it was about 2 years ago, I believe, 3 years ago. No?
It's 2017.
Well, time flies.
When you're having...
Well, the point being is I don't think that study got all the light it probably should have had, because frankly it had some stuff on there that people didn't want. But I think I'd like to open that back up and take a look at what the results of there's a lot of money spent on that study, and I suspect some of the findings are still relevant.
Yes, sir, I appreciate that. And, we did the full regional arterial study, but we also did MoCan Northeast. And Commissioner, I haven't forgotten about your request, so we are going back and sort of looking at that. But also, one of the things that you may not have known is that CAMPO, TxDOT, and Williamson County are working together to move forward work on FM 973 north of 290. So that between the district office and Williamson County, that work is now funded. Feasibility work is funded all the way up to 79. So you'll be hearing more about that.
Tucker.
We all often refer to safety in our components of the 3 E's, and we talked about the engineering piece and try to design features to make our roadway safer, and the enforcement piece with law enforcement, partnering with them. But the one we didn't talk about yet is the educational piece. And we have many statewide campaigns. We have drinking and driving and texting and driving in work zones and seat belts. But in addition to the statewide campaigns and programs, we are really making an effort to try to take it to the local level, doing workshops and assemblies in schools or civic organizations. So if there's any opportunities that our board has for that, we have resources where we can put programs together and do those types of outreach to get it down to to the young teenage drivers. At schools especially, we see, and some of those were reflected in there, but we're seeing crashes and the rates skyrocket with our young drivers. So we're really focusing on the educational effort as well as the other engineering, the enforcement piece. So put that out there. If anybody needs that assistance, be glad to do that.
Great point, thank you. Any other comments on this topic?
I have one, Madam Chair. No, I can't.
Yes, sir.
I want to reiterate and I guess pull in together some of the comments that were made regarding the regionality of this issue. If something happens where there's not enforcement in one specific city along that highway, because of law enforcement or whatnot right there, it permeates the other areas around here, because as we said before, our citizens don't live in one specific area. They travel and traverse through all our different cities and roadways all the time. So I'm not quite sure what to propose on that, but I think that definitely needs to be part of the conversation when we're talking about safety issues over here from that. Because, some of these numbers, frankly, they're just troubling. And to hear about what you're saying about our young people with the skyrocketing numbers regarding the speeds and everything else, I think we need to look at this. And that's what's cool about this August board, right? Is that we get to have a conversation originally about this. And I think we really need to understand that the lack of enforcement somewhere else has the domino effect in other areas. And if we can help shore up or work or buttress specific areas and work together on those things, that makes a monster difference in how we're going to look at these numbers and how we do things done.
Thank you. I've got one. Commissioner.
So I think if Sarah Eckhart was still here, she'd appreciate me bringing this up, because her and I used to talk about this quite a bit. And that's the commonality but never discussed commonality of economic development and how that affects the region in terms of transportation. And, you know, when we, as local governments, bring in really large industry to an area that doesn't have a lot of good infrastructure around it, that's going to happen. So, you know, we as local government need to, you know, take our responsible part of this as well, in that when we bring in a Tesla or Samsung, we need to look around the region and see if we're prepared for that. And part of those incentives need to really focus on how that's going to affect transportation and the safety of our citizens in those regions. And I say this with a pretty good amount of passion of late. I've talked about it for 20 years. Maybe somebody will listen to me eventually. But, you know, 969, you know, over there, 973, you know, all these things, you know, we're experiencing explosive growth in the western part, northwestern part of Bastrop County, and we're not prepared for it. We're trying to get prepared for it in terms of right-of-way acquisition and getting aggressive with these developers and requiring right-of-way dedication and all those great things. But, you know, we need to recognize this as local government and our parts in this as well.
Well said. Any other comments on this topic? Yes, ma'am.
It just occurred to me, and this is certainly a conversation that we can follow up with. Tucker, I'm really interested in following up with you about the education campaigns. But something that I heard somebody make reference to recently really caught my attention. And if I may, you know, just a moment of personal privilege, I'm going through a family member with a traumatic brain injury right now. And this one happened to be from a fall, but my first experience with my family with a traumatic brain injury was from a car accident. And I was in a conversation with one of the nurses out at Texas Neuro Rehab, and she said something along the lines of, if young people could see what it looks like to experience and suffer from and try to recover from a traumatic brain injury, they'd slow down or not want their licenses at all. That just really, it was, one, compelling, but it really just struck me. I wonder, I don't know how many parents there are in the room, but my teenagers absolutely believe that they are untouchable. And so I just wonder what that preemptive education component would look like if we did take folks who have had the misfortune of suffering a traumatic brain injury and really just, you know, get people to think through the implications of, you know, I think that sort of untouchable mentality, you know, you put the kibosh on that when you go, but what if you live, you know? And what does that look like on the other end? I just really hope we can put some weight behind
And we're always looking for opportunity to shoot short videos or things like that, or testimonials. And social media is a very powerful tool that we could use that in our Twitter accounts or Facebook or whatever. We have it, but it can be shared on other platforms as well. So, yeah, let's talk about those ideas.
Okay, we've got one final comment over here. Jeff, you had something I think you were going to share.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to put in a plug at this point. TTI runs a program. It's actually a national, actually I'd have to say it's more an international program these days. It's a program called Teens in the Driver's Seat. I don't know if any of y'all have heard of it. It is a program that is it is a peer-to-peer approach for dealing with traffic safety. Essentially, folks in the program on our end work with high schools and sometimes even middle schools. We get started earlier than that. And we go to the schools and we talk to the kids and basically say, look, we have a problem here. Teen crashes, 1 in 6, you are going to cause 1 in 6 crashes. And you know, you're too young to be, you know, your brains are not quite ready for this, and we'd hate to see you all lose your lives, you know, and you know, because you're learning this new skill. My daughter's learning this skill now. Lord help us all. But the idea is that we're going to give you the tools. We're going to give you the information. You come up with the approach to talk to your friends. I don't want to be necessarily one to tell you what to do, because I'm a 53-year-old adult, and how many you have to deal with a 53-year-old adult at home every day. They're not going to be listening to us so much as they listen to their friends, to their peers. And so we work with them and provide funds and provide materials so that they can reach out to their schoolmates about traffic safety, get them started at the young age, and hopefully they'll walk away with that. And there's a variety of different activities that they do, and it's in hundreds of schools across the country. And it got started here in Texas, and it'd be something I'd like to see grow in this region. It's been quite successful in the Houston area to the point where they had to hire someone to go run the Houston program. So I'd like to see it grow here.
All right, thanks for that. Ashby, anything you wanted to do to wrap up on this one?
Madam Chair, the only thing I will say is I was going to bring up the same program that Mr. Kaufman raised, and he was the one that started that program in Houston.
Great. Well,
I didn't start it, I just...
Well, for all intents and purposes, you did.
Told them I want to give them money and let them play in my backyard.
So it sounds like there's resources via TxDOT, there's other resources, and if we could just, staff create a place and a repository and get that out and disseminated to the board, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. If I could really quick circle back to item 9, one of the things I failed to include in the motion on the recommendation on Ashby was that it be implemented in the next available pay cycle. So if the maker and second of the motion, if we can amend that to,
I can't remember.
how should we properly do that, Tim? Okay, so I'll bring that back up, and if that is a friendly amendment to that.
I'd move to include that in the action taken
Okay.
prior.
All right, second. All right, let's vote on that one more time. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank y'all. Sorry, I thought about that after we finished. All right, let's move on to item number 11. Ryan.
Thank you. So this item is to introduce a new funding program. It's the Carbon Reduction Program. This is a new program that came out of the IIJA, and
What's the IIJA?
Oh, excuse the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs
Okay,
Act.
thank you.
Or also known as the bill, bipartisan infrastructure. Law. That's it. Like STBG funding and TASA funding, the CRP funding program is directly under the purview of the MPO and the TMA areas. And so this program is a source of funding that's designed to directly reduce transportation emissions, tailpipe transportation emissions. So we're going to receive approximately $22 million for distribution within the transportation management area, which is essentially our urbanized area. Similar to the TASA program, it has a 4-year obligation limitation. There is a local match requirement. There's an 80% federal, 20% local match. And there's also the location eligibility similar to the TASA program. So one of the requirements in order to access this funding is that we do have to develop a regional carbon reduction plan. And so one reason I'm bringing this to you today is that we're going to be bringing this back as an action item, requesting a portion of the current CRP funding that we have to develop this regional carbon reduction plan over the next year. So this regional reduction plan will look at developing regional goals and objectives. We're also going to be looking at providing targets. There's a new performance measure that's coming out. It's under the rulemaking process currently, where we as a region will have to start setting carbon reduction targets. And then we're also going to look at developing strategies and analyzing the effectiveness of the strategies that are worth investing in, and essentially prioritize and recommend activities for the remainder of the CRP funding program. So this funding is going to go through 2026. This is a formula program, so depending on what happens after 2026, this will continue to be kind of a permanent program, and it'll be kind of lumped in there with our TASA funding, and STBG is the third program that we have direct control over how it's spent in the region. So I do want to talk about the eligible activities. There's basically a lot of eligible activities that are put in statute. Any TASA projects, we can spend it on public transportation, traffic management, ITS, congestion management technology, TDM, freight, alternative fuel vehicles, kind of all the things you would think about are kind of rolled up into this program. And interesting, on the very bottom, there is other activities that you can are eligible as long as you can demonstrate that it'll actually reduce emissions. And so that's one thing that's going to be important for the actual plan, is to look at the effectiveness of these eligible activities and kind of see which ones are more effective than others, so we can prioritize how we invest these funds. $22 million in the grand scheme of things is not a lot of funding, so we need to make sure that we're spending it on things that actually work. And also, it'll also give us an opportunity to kind of look outside the box with that, in that other activities, and see if there's anything else that's not specifically listed here that we may consider. So with that, just want to introduce you to the program, and so we'll be bringing this back in January, next policy board meeting, requesting a portion of the funding for the plan, and then we'll get that kicked off. That will be a regional plan. Even though this is specifically for the TMA, we are going to approach this plan as a regional body for all 6 counties. I think that's a really critical thing to do, and it'll certainly be developed with all of the stakeholders in the region on that stakeholder committee. We'll certainly get CAPCOG involved, as well as our local governments, so that we make sure this is a regional plan. So with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
So more info to come on that one. Thank you, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, item number 12, Executive Director's Report.
Ryan, why don't you go ahead with A?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I just wanted the project progress reports. We have our third quarter project progress reports in your backup materials, and I just really wanted to highlight a few things. Most everything is going along pretty good. We've got the Workstam Bridge has submitted their schematic for TxDOT review. The Austin to Manor Trail has accepted bids for the construction contractor, and we'll be moving forward with construction shortly. The Kyle Sidings project, which is a major project down in the city of Kyle, where they're going to move the UP siding line up to the north a little bit outside of downtown, is under 90% review, and they're currently purchasing row. That's in progress. Moving forward at Lightspeed, it seems like, is the city of Round Rock. Both of their projects, both University Boulevard and Kenny Fort Boulevard, are over 50% complete. So those are moving forward. Yeah, very, very quickly.
University Boulevard is a mess.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably more than 50% at this point.
It's exciting to see how fast those have gone, and those were awarded in 2018, so they are by far well ahead of most every other project that we awarded in 2018. They're doing a great job up there. Gaskell Road, they're just doing a little bit of utility relocation, but the contractor has been selected, and they'll be moving forward with construction at any time as soon as that utility relocation is underway. And then also City of San Marcos is closing out their Hopkins Bike Ped facility. That construction is complete on that, and they've received the final payment. The only project that we didn't get a report on was the North Lamar Airport Boulevard grade separation project. We know that's moving forward. It's a design funding, but we just didn't receive a report. So when you're looking in the reports in the background, that's the only one that is not up to date. So with that, just wanted to give an opportunity to give some shout outs to all the progress we're seeing in the region, and that's directly the result of the policy board's funding decisions. So thank you.
So, Madam Chair, we've got a couple of other items under Executive Director's Report. So, in just a moment, I'll ask Serco to come up and give a brief update on the HERO program. But before we do that, there is a National Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, so sister agencies to CAMPO across the country, about 400, little over 400 organizations across the country. Our annual meeting was in late October in Minneapolis. During that meeting, I was elected president by a body of my peers. So for the next 2 years, I will be president of the National MPO Association across the country. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. Congratulations.
Thanks.
So what they said on their evaluation was true.
Now I'll ask Mr. Morton to come forward and give us an update on HERO. So while he's coming up to the podium to start on that, just as a reminder for the newer board members, the HERO program is is both an incident management strategy for this region, but also a safety program as well. And up to this point, most of the funding for the program in this region has come from this body. So I've asked Mr. Morton to give us a presentation on this today, one, because I thought it dovetailed well with Mr. Kaufman's presentation, but also because the Texas Transportation Commission of TxDOT is giving some consideration to paying for this going forward. So,
and just by way of history, since I seem to be the local historian, this, and Tucker, you may be able to point out when, but TxDOT for many, many years funded the safety program, and then it seems like it was about 10 or so years ago that they stopped doing that, and CAMPO stepped in. I think it was when then Senator Watson was chairing CAMPO that we started funding it because we felt like it was so important in terms of safety and reducing crashes and getting those vehicles off the roadway. And then for a period of time, the CTRMA ran the program, and then it was turned over again. So it's run sort of full circle, but I think it's continued to prove itself in the value that it brings to our roadways. So just by way of history.
Perfect. Thank you. For you guys that don't know who I am, my name is Jeff Morton. I am the program manager for the HERO operations here in the Austin District. I want to, before I get started real quick, just to thank Ashby for he was instrumental in starting this program up from the beginning. His support's been phenomenal. And also with Tucker, since he became the DE here in Austin, his support to move this program and expand it even further has been exceptional. So I appreciate both what you guys are doing. So thank you very much. Real quick, as far as what the Austin program is. So what it is TxDOT is partnership with CAMPO to contract with Circle, which is who I work for, to provide...
If you could stay a little closer to the microphone.
To provide the Highway Emergency Response Program here in Austin. Some of the roadways, we cover all the major roadways, so 183, 71, 290, I-35, Loop 1, all the major areas. And the reason behind HERO is to provide quick, safe clearance to the roadway so we can keep the motorists moving. Throughout the past, so Circle took over in 2017, took over the HERO program in 2017. And since conception of when Circle took over, our primary focus is incident management. So what that means is we provide services to fire, rescue, law enforcement. Our services are to protect the scene so they can do their job more efficiently and safely, to concentrate on what they need to do so we can open the roadway up quicker. Secondary to the incident management is roadside assistance. So if you're on the side of the road providing, need a tire change, fuel, anything like that, we will provide that service free of charge to any motorist to get them off the shoulder and get them moving. One of the benefits of having this program, we have reduced the secondary collisions, which is extremely important. When you get the queue backed up with all these different drivers around here, they don't really pay attention, and you get those secondaries happening. So with this program, it helps reduce those secondary crashes from occurring. Some of the main points, one of the biggest takeaways, I guess, for me, and one of the biggest things I like to tell everybody I'm really, really proud about, is that since we've taken over the program, everybody knows that first responders are getting struck way too many times, and it's horrible. So we need to fix that. We need to correct it and make sure it doesn't happen. Every scene that HERO's worked since 2017, there hasn't been one first responder struck. So that's something that's near and dear to me, and it's something I really like. I know stats are great, data's great, we like to see numbers, but that's one of the main ones that really drives our program. Some of the services, I don't know who's got the, can you go to the next one, please? Maybe? I don't know, we're missing the summary. Okay. This is talking about the mission again. There's a slide that has our data on it, so you can see what we've done. There it is, there it is. So just some quick facts so you can see what we've done since we started. We've handled over 135 incidents. That's worked with law enforcement as well. We have assisted on over 22,000 incidents with the law enforcement staff. I won't go over all of them. I think everybody's got a take home with them. We've got a takeaway, so I won't go over every single one. But I will let you know that HERO, our response time for HERO, we average 3 minutes, basically 3 minutes and 40 seconds is our average response time to any incident. And we achieve that by placing our routes in a situation to where we are able to make that response time. So I'm trying to think of what's the best way to, anyway. So sorry about that. So yeah, we're integral in providing our routes. So the way they're set up is we try to keep everything within like a 10-mile radius, which allows us to respond and have those response times. And the reason why is because the quicker we respond, the quicker we can get that roadway open, and we can move forward from there, and all the motorists are going. We have a few programs, not only just the HERO, the Highway Emergency Response Program, but we also have programs such as MOT, which is maintenance of traffic. You'll see the trailer up there in your right-hand corner. That's our maintenance of traffic trailer, and what that is a long-term trailer for any incident that's going to last over 2 hours. If we can't get any assistance out there to help us, we'll take our own trailer out there and provide that long-term closure. It's situated with barrels, barricades, got 500 tons of kitty litter, things like that. So this is what we will take out. It's equipped with emergency lights and a message board so that we can actually drop that trailer further up the queue, use that as your as a lane block in the vehicle as well. We can, and then we have the HERO vehicle attached to it, so we can use that as well. So that's 2 vehicles in one to take the roadway. The picture below that is our debris program. We also have debris where our normal patrollers will go out and remove the debris from the roadway and put it on their shoulders. What happens after that is our debris trailer team comes up behind there and picks up the debris off the shoulder. The reason why is we want first responders to be able to access incidents as quickly as possible, so we want that debris off the roadway, off the shoulder, so they can respond like they should. And since this program started in 2018, it was one of our expansions, which took us to the weekend as well, weekend work. And since we started in 2018, we've removed 943 tons of debris off the roadway. So that's a huge amount. Our dispatch response time is just under 14 minutes. And that's, again, based on because we strategically placed our routes in areas that we need to respond quicker. So for instance, in the city, the routes will be shorter. For the route, they'll be a little bit longer. Other than that, I really don't, shouldn't be too many other, because I don't want to take up everybody's time. Shouldn't be too much other discussion. I'll just open up for questions because there's a lot going on.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to refer back to item number 10 so we can discuss this. Councilmember.
Thank you. This is a great program, and we had a report about it in incident management and congestion from CAMPO a few years ago, and one of the things that report called for was an expansion to 360. I'm not sure if this is directed a question to you or a question to Tucker or Ashby, but I've had some conversations in the past and kept being told that we had to wait, and I'm really eager to see us implement this on 360, which would be one of the major roads where it's not yet on, given all the construction we're going to be having. Getting those roads cleared quickly is going to be even more of an imperative. So I'm wondering if either one of you might be able to speak to expansion plans for 360 or beyond.
Tucker, do you want me to?
Yeah, and I pulled up the one page out of the CAMPO Regional Incident Management Strategic Plan. It was done several years ago, and we have a phased approach, 7 different phases. I'm not sure which phase we're in, but Loop 360 and RM 620 are on the 5th phase of that. So this goes back to dollars being allocated to it. So I can't say which phase we're in, Ashby.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at it myself. I know it was in a future phase. Councilmember, like you said, One of the things I was going to bring up is Serco's contract is up for renewal next year, and then the routes will probably be negotiated as part of that contract work. But we will go back and look at the phasing, and I'll follow up with you on that, Councilmember.
All right, any other
I just
questions?
wanted to ask also for 620 and 360, would definitely be interested in that and follow-up you can provide so that we can be watching that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there were lots of orange circles along 620.
Yeah, and I know that was I thought that was in a higher phase for implementation, but I'll go back and pull that.
Thank you.
Yes.
The additional information.
Can I also be copied on getting that additional information, just to stay
Okay.
updated on the phasing? Yes, yeah, maybe the whole board would appreciate it. I know I would as well.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, Ashby, is there anything else you have under your executive director's report?
No, ma'am.
Okay, just as a reminder, our December board meeting, we will not have, and the next TAC meeting, November 28th, and our next policy board meeting will be January the 9th. So unless there are any other items that I missed, we stand adjourned.